don't forget to click like, subscribe, and the notifications bell to ensure you don't miss any future updates and videos. This week, I'm delighted to be joined again for part 2 of the exclusive interview with former Strangeways Prison Officer and Racanteur Supreme Neil Samworth. Sam, thanks a million for coming back. We haven't scared you off anyway, by the sounds of it.
I'll do, and you're welcome.
I'll do.
How
have you been?
All right, mate. All good, busy, which is good. World's starting to get back to normal, which I've been thinking about a lot this week. You know, a lot of the time during this pandemic, I don't think people have been doing anything different to what they normally would. However, I think it has impacted on people's lives quite a lot. So, you know, I'm glad we're going the right way.
Yeah, it looks like we're coming out of it a bit anyway. A lot of people are getting the vaccine by now anyway, so
yeah, definitely.
Bright lights ahead.
That would be good, yes.
So it's 9 o'clock in the morning. We both have the fire on there, as you can see. So we'll do the obligatory cheers, and we get stuck into the nitty gritty, as they say. So cheers and good health, my man. So we touched on a little bit there the last day of your time in Strangeways.
Yep.
And I was just going to ask you to go back to the very start, when you started in the Strangeways. You had some obstacles to overcome in the training side of things, which didn't
off
to the best start for you.
I did. I did, yeah. I've actually this last few days actually found out what kicked it all off, believe it or believe it not. It was the first to second day of training, so can't remember exactly how many people we had on the course. Maybe 15, 20. There was a lass on the course I knew. I sat down next to her on a bench seat. One of the lads come up to sit down, so I utched her up. Do you know what that means? Just shuffled my bum across and moved her up so the lad could sit down. We had a bit of a friendly chat. She's like, you know, don't push me. I knew her, don't push me. I'm like, you know, move up, bum, bum, bum. There was another lass there that I didn't know on the course. She reported that as bullying, which it just caused a world of pain for everyone. Everyone, it was about 5 lads who were decent size. We all got took upstairs one at a time. All got told we were bullies. And that is literally because I did that. And it just set a bad tone for the whole of training. So
should never do in an Irish mass anyway.
No, well, this is the thing. This is the thing. You know, it's like, you know, it's something you do at school, isn't it? But she, I've been told she made a big deal about it. Said she was upset. She'd come on this course. She'd heard all prison officers were bullying, and I'd already bullied on the first or second day. But you know what? She was believed. We were slapped down, as it were. You know, the way they spoke to me, I can't even mention, you know, the sort of language they used, but they wouldn't tell me why. So, you know, like 5 years later, somebody says this is what it was for. So shocking. But obviously, as I went into the prison, our course were full of bullies. That sort of followed us into the prison. So not the best start, not the easiest start.
Especially when they kind of said to you on the first day that you weren't going to pass training. You know,
they told me quite definitely I weren't going to pass. I had a really hard time for the first 4 weeks, and then it sort of turned around a bit. I did a lot of work. The prison service training is not the best. you know, when you get 8 weeks training, I don't know what people imagine. A lot of it is classroom, overhead projector, boring tests, homework. You know, you don't learn anything like that. I don't learn anything like that. But I did a lot of work. I did the homework. I shared the homework with other people, photocopied it, you know, people who were struggling. So I put the graft in, and at about halfway point, the guy who was the main trainer, he sort of started looking at me in a different light, I believe. So it definitely got easier after that.
Well, I think you might fool people for a couple of days, but over a period of time you're not. And I think people knew fairly shortly that you weren't a bully.
That's what I've always said. You know, you can blag people for a short period, but over a period of time, your true self will shine through. And that worked both ways, you know. The end of the course got a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit easier. For her, it got harder because she continued with this sort of facade that everyone were a bully, and people started looking at her, you know, with raised eyebrows and that. You know, what are you going on about? But yeah, it was something and nothing, but we can look back on it now. We learn something, don't we, with everything? So
you came out the best out of that situation anyway. So
yeah, definitely. You know, when I went to K-Wing, I got the talk from the SO and the PO about being a bully. They'd heard I was a bully. So again, what it meant was, as I went in, you know, I had to be the best I could be. So maybe it took me a couple of months, get my feet under the table, and then again, people start looking at you in different light, and away you go. So yeah, it was all good really after that.
There was an incident at the start of your time in Strangeways where you told the truth about what happened in a situation where a prisoner had been assaulted.
Yeah.
And you were it was said to you that it was better that you didn't get involved in restraints as you wouldn't be backed up.
Oh, that was quite a way on that, but basically, yeah, that was on A-Wing. See, it all comes back when it's there. I was on A-Wing. There was an investigation going on around an incident on K-Wing. The SO on A-Wing, that in fact what he said. When I went on the wing, I talked to a couple of lads. I had a couple of mates on there, no problem. He come up, and that's what he said. Basically, don't get involved in anything because my staff won't back you up. I told him politely to go away. I left the wing and told the manager I was going back to healthcare, which is what I did. The prison service it's a closed shop. Not everybody agrees with some of the things that go on, the dark things, which isn't happening every day, you know. However, people are scared to speak up, and a lot of people, even good people I used to work with, believe that what happens in prison should stay in prison. So, which, you know.
That must have made you feel very alone, though. You know,
I was very lucky because the staff on K-Wing supported me because they knew what had been going on K-Wing. So maybe off the wing, it was a bit dodgy, but when I was back on K-Wing, it was all right. So most of the time I worked on K-Wing anyway. So I was lucky in that respect. But, you know, another wing, I could have ended up on my own. And it is. It's a very dark world. I know people who reported things, quite bad things like sexual assaults, you know, staff members sexually assaulting another staff member. And the person who's reported it has been the bad person. You know, they're not investigated properly, told to back off, warned, threatened, that sort of thing. Very, very dark world.
Of all jobs that you need support from your colleagues or management, a prison officer is one of those roles. So that's horrendous, like, to hear that stuff, you know.
I worked, and a lot of people, you know, sort of forget this. I worked for 23 years in engineering, yeah. I worked in some big companies. I worked in companies where my first job, there was about 400 women worked there and 35 lads. You know, I never come across anything, you know, every job I had in engineering, there's no sort of, you know, everyone just did the jobs. There were nothing untoward or dodgy like that. I think the problem is, if you work in an industry that's kids' homes, care, prisons, you know, at some point, if you're working with people or caring for people, then it's open to abuse, very sadly.
Speaking of that, I really found your interview with the previously bent screw Lee fascinating on your Real Porridge podcast, and he's been on Billy Moore as well. I suppose Lee's story, to summarize, was that he got stuck into smuggling phones and other contraband into the prison, and that for a fee.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And,
well, you know,
it caught up with him in the end. And I suppose you mention in the book how poor the salary is for a prison officer starting off. Were you ever tempted yourself?
Oh, never.
Similar route?
No, when I was in the private sector, you know, the pay conditions, staffing levels were nowhere near as good as the public sector prison. Yeah. Private sector prisons for profit. It weren't good. Big turnover of staff. However, the prison service now, private and public sector, pay the same wages. The decent pensions have gone. There will be a lot more corruption. There'll be a lot more corruption simply because they're employing, well, there's a big turnover of staff. There's a lot of young staff, a lot of inexperienced staff. When I was in the private sector, my last 6 months, I got asked every single day, you know, you come across as a friendly chap, someone would come up, you're all right, boss, you seem friendly. Yeah. Do you want to make some money? You know, go away. It was that sort of thing. And the thing is, they will ask everyone, and they will look at people who are weak, maybe naive, you know. I know young lasses when I were in private sector who thought they're in love with someone and would bring them things in. So, but now the whole of the prison service, corruption on 2 levels. There's the corruption where people are taking things in, unauthorized items, and there's a management corruption where things are not getting reported and things are getting up. And I know both are out of control, out of hand. So, very dangerous place to be.
Yeah. That interview with Lee on Sam's podcast, Real Porridge Podcast, there's 4 parts to it, well worth checking out. It's very good to see his angle and what he suffered as a result. And I think one of the things that really kind of struck home to me was that when he was caught, it was the relief he felt of not having to do it anymore. You know, as opposed to missing out on the business opportunity of continuing to do it. You know, it had got to his, it messed with his head so much.
It's also a very, very dangerous thing to be doing. You know what I mean? The gangs from Liverpool and Manchester, they're ruthless. So if he'd have actually been in the job and said, I'm not doing it anymore, he's either going to get bubbled, i.e. people are going to report what he's doing, or he's going to get a visit from somebody. Like I say, some of them have no morals or whatever. So once you start bringing something in, that's it, you're done. The thing is about Lee, and he admitted, you know, he made quite a lot of money and they kept paying him money. A lot of people will bring something in, you'll get a decent fee. Second time, you hold your hand out for your money and it's like, you're in our pocket now. You know, first phone you get 500. After that, we give you 100 quid or whatever. Very, very dodgy business. The other thing is, a lot of people don't make any money. You know, everyone thinks if somebody's taking 40 grand's worth of drugs into prison and gets caught, they think they're making a lot of money. They won't be making a lot of money. And the consequences, obviously, Lee paid them, so which had affected him for a long time. He's better now. He's in a better place now. but it's taken 10 years to sort of, you know, get his head around it or whatever. So it's a dodgy game. It's a dodgy game.
Yeah. Well, at least you had the sense to avoid it. So fair play.
Oh, definitely.
So one of the things that really comes across speaking to you and from the book was you're a people person, Sam, and you like building rapport with people. And one of the things that kind of resonated with me, as it's something that I kind of try to do in my own job as well, in the job I do, the building relationships with the people you're working with or for. And I think the way you described dynamic security is very good in the book. Can you maybe just explain to people what dynamic security is?
Dynamic security, right? There's three types of security in prison. You got your physical, which is gates, bars, your razor wire, your walls. You got procedural, which is obviously rules and regs, procedures and things like that. And then you've got your dynamic security. So that's staff-prisoner relationships, the conversations you have, you know, working on these, building them up, trust, all that sort of thing. For me, that's what used to make prisons a safe place. You know, like you say, you can't blag someone. You could blag someone for a day, but they're seeing you every day interacting. You know, they know whether you're a good person or a bad person, whether you're approachable, whether you'll help them with anything, your communication and everything else. And that's what makes it safe, because people get to know you. So, yeah, I need something doing. I'll go and see Mr. Samworth. I'll ignore Mr. Smith, that sort of thing. And that, you know, it was because I'd worked at Forest Bank. A lot of the lads at Strangeways have been in Forest Bank. Maybe after a year, as you walk around the jail, little chit chats everywhere. You know, I might go on D-Wing for something. Somebody there, I know, you have a little chat. You build up that rapport and trust and respect as well. So is a massive thing. Sadly now, you know, we've had the pandemic, but if you look before that, staffing was that short that prisoners have been locked up. So lots of new staff, prisoners, there's no relationship. They don't know the staff. There's no experience. There's frustration. So it's a dangerous place to be. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. One of the times the dynamic security really came into use for yourself or came in handy was when one of your colleagues stitched you up on Christmas Day. You can tell us that story.
Oh, God. The fish curry saga. Right, Christmas Day, I'm a cleaning officer. Cleaning officer looks after the cleaners. They're prisoners who get paid to clean the wing. Yeah, they'll be out. It's a good job. You'll get more, Jim. It's a privileged job, but it's also a job where you need a certain amount of trust in people. On K-Wing, we had a lot of cleaners, and usually they do two jobs. At dinner, they'll serve meals as well, so they are servery workers. As a cleaning officer, you would order next day's meals from the kitchen, yeah? So you'd put an order in, that way the kitchen could process that order, and the next day they knew exactly what they were cooking. Obviously, if you got 1,200 prisoners, I can't phone them an hour before and give them my order. They need to, you know, prep stuff, maybe get stuff out of the freezer. So a lad who I called Two Pens, as in two pens you write with, because he was always writing prisoners up and reporting them. Yeah, it was endless. He was obsessed with it. He ordered for Christmas Day 200 prisoners on the wing. What I would have expected was maybe 160 Christmas dinners and maybe 30 curries. Like... Yeah, maybe 30 curries, the halal choice for the Muslims. And then if there was a third choice, maybe a couple of vegetarians or whatever. So this lad decided that it'd be quite funny to order 160 portions of fish curry. So no Christmas dinner, no roast spuds, no meat, no Yorkshire puds, no nothing. I didn't find out till 11 o'clock on Christmas Day. Christmas Day, cleaning off, say 11 o'clock, you phone the kitchens, you know, check on what you've got. When I was told I got 160 portions of fish curry coming, then, you know, to say I was upset, you know, is a bit of an understatement. Instant stress. The lass who worked in the kitchens who were in charge, Donna, when she read it, because, you know, they just process an order, but when she actually looked at our order, she was shocked. She hadn't realised, no one had realised. Could have quite definitely been a riot. Anyway, something I've always done, if a prison officer has done something wrong like that, I'm not making no excuses for him. He might have thought that was funny. It was a serious thing that he'd done. You know, you can laugh about it now and people laugh about it. So what I did, I got everyone together, all my cleaners, all my survey workers. I told them to go to every single cell and tell them fish curry on the menu. Yeah, no Christmas dinners whatsoever. I told them to tell them that Officer Two Pens had done it, and I would try and do the best I could with the kitchens. Like I said, it could have gone really badly that day. The lass in the kitchens went above and beyond. Lots of extra bits and bobs, sent over what she could, sent over everything that were left. The actual meal they got, there was loads. She sent absolutely loads of food. Everyone had plates full of food. There was some bits and bobs from Christmas dinner. The fish curry didn't turn out that bad. So it turned out to be a good day, but it could have very easily gone wrong. That lad who ordered that, who probably thought it was funny, could have been responsible for a riot. Yeah. I didn't see him for 2 weeks after that, you know, because of our shift patterns. But the manager, who was on Christmas Day, told him in no uncertain terms when he saw me that he needed to keep his mouth shut and not say anything about what had happened. If I'd have seen him Christmas Day, I'd have got sacked. If he'd have been working, I'd have got sacked, honestly, mate. It was, I can't tell you how stressful that hour and a half before dinner. But again, you know, as people come down for dinner, I knew all the lads on the wing. They don't one or two got something to say. I knew them all, I explained, and they all went away happy. So it was a good day. No incidents, although there could have been a riot. But that, again, you had to be there. There was staff who were there, who were upstairs, waiting for dinner time so they could go home and have their Christmas dinner. You know, they weren't supportive. They weren't interested or whatever, but the wing manager was. So yeah, it went off all right. It was a good day.
Fair play to you for averting what could have been a very serious situation there. So
definitely.
One of the funniest parts of your book, Sam, was one of the prisoners got up close and personal with a shampoo bottle.
Oh, yes. Are you wanting me to expand on that? As it were? No
As it
pun
were,
intended.
Yeah. Hey? Go on, sure.
Okay, so on nights, emergency cell bell. Every cell has a cell bell, yeah, that in the cell, a prisoner can press it. It's for emergencies. So my mate on was a wing, a bell in the night, you know, early hours of the morning. He went to attend, and there was a lad, a bit sheepish. He said he needed to see the nurse. So my mate says, what do you want to see the nurse for? He said, I can't tell you. He says, well, I'm not fetching a nurse, which you wouldn't, you know. Nurses are there for emergencies or whatever. Somebody wanting to see a nurse, I would definitely want to know what they wanted. So it went on a couple of times, this, over about 20 minutes. He'd press the bell. My mate would go and attend, ask him what he was after. What he'd done, he got a shampoo bottle. How should we put this in a polite way? He decided that it'd be a good idea to put his manhood in the shampoo bottle in order to satisfy himself.
As
You're
you
nodding
do,
there like you're talking about. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, let's just say he got it stuck. Not in a good way either. The end of his old man is inside the bottle and it's swelled up like a boiled egg. So he can't pull it off now. My mate obviously saw it. Comedy moment, got the nurse. On nights, being a high security jail, Strangeways, you need a dog and dog handler. You need the two managers in order to open the prisoner up. Obviously, there's a nurse and my mate there. They opened him up. Everyone's laughing. The nurse is, obviously it's a bit of a comedy moment for her as well. However, as the incident went on, it got more serious. And I do know the nurse. The nurse was a good friend of mine. It got a bit more serious because after an amount of time, it got quite painful for the lad. And also, after an amount of time, tissue starts dying, apparently. The manager was upset. They had to send him to hospital. There was no choice. The nurse is in charge. She said he needs to go to hospital. They took him to hospital. They tried everything. Lubricants.
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. They have a ring cutter in hospital, which is literally, if you go in, broken hand, your ring swells up. They're cutting wedding rings off. They tried that. They couldn't do it. Again, this is perhaps 2 hours later now after the incident started. So if you can imagine that now, it's like a bit of a medical emergency. It's got a lot more serious. They did give him some drugs as well, in order to, which didn't work. So they got a maintenance guy. He came along with a wrench.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly. He came along with a wrench. The guy was like panicking. Basically, what they did, nurse talked to him, look at me, guy got a wrench, fastened it to the shampoo bottle and pulled it off, as it were. No pun intended.
Pun intended, I was just about to say.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've no doubt everyone had a laugh, and no doubt the staff had a laugh. I've no doubt they had a laugh in hospital. It's one of them tales you won't believe unless you were there. But yeah, so, my friend sees the funny side of it, the little nurse. She's Irish, little Irish nurse. She's in the book. Did you read about her?
Yeah, and I heard your story about when you're in the queue for St. Paul's Cathedral as well last week. That was
yes.
Story. Yeah. You should have said the rosary when you're in the queue.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's watching this and has notions about a shampoo bottle, don't try this at home,
No, don't do it.
But at least he survived anyways. That's the main thing, and it wasn't.
Oh yeah,
that's good. He lived to fight another day, as they say. So there was a couple of prisoners that really got inside your head, as you can imagine. It's totally understandable they would. Two of those were Mark Bridger and Dale Cregan. I know they affected you massively psychologically, having to deal with them. Could you just maybe summarize what it was about them that really got to you?
Dale Cregan, he obviously killed 4 people, including them two young police lasses. Dale Cregan, not so much inside my head. He was just He was someone we had to deal with. I didn't have to deal with him a lot. Obviously not a nice person. How he conducted himself. You know, it was all about the swagger and the kudos or whatever. But he just, you know, he weren't a nice person at the end of the day. But he didn't get under my skin so much. He didn't like us. When he came to the healthcare, there was nothing for him on there. No one was interested in him. You know, it was all about the limelight.
Yeah.
Look at me sort of thing. Mark Bridger. Yeah, he did get under my skin. End of the day. Very, very high profile prisoner. Took a young lass, April Jones, bless her. Murdered her and who knows what else. But again, I've said many times how people affect you, how you get on with them is how they behave, you know. And here you've got a guy who banged to rights. The first time I met him, you know he's guilty. And then you've got 10 months of him sort of playing a game, you know, pretending he's mad. You know, it's people like that. It's all about them. Forget the crime. You know, they're in prison. Woe is me. But they also attract. They're able to draw people in, officers, civilians. You know, people. It's. I don't know. The best way to describe it is accident on the motorway. Yeah. So you're traveling on the motorway. You're in a queue, a traffic jam for half an hour. And then you come to a point when you realize, actually, there's no accident on your side of the road. It's on the other side of the road. But everyone's stopping to have a look. So the reason you're stuck in a traffic jam, you know, it's like sort of that black macabre thing that goes on in the human brain. And he was like that. He drew people in. Me, day one, bang to rights. You know, he took a young lass and murdered her. He was just evil. But people are like caught in headlights and are talking to him, and everything was about him. You know, it was nothing to do with a crime. Woe is me. And we had 10 months of that. And from day one, all I wanted to do was punch him in the face. I could have happily punched him in the face every single day. Plenty of documentaries now about people like him by people who've never met him, telling you how evil they are and how manipulative and everything else. So yeah, not a good person. He's definitely the worst person I've ever met. Ever.
I think you were saying as well in the book that what really got you about him is how he tried to cozy up to you so much, like Mr. Samworth this and Mr. Samworth that.
Oh, it's pathetic. Every single day, you know, you'd ask him a question. The shower. Are you having a shower, Mark? Can I have a shower? Every single day. But it was like that with everybody. You know, and it was just he just didn't get on with it. He just didn't get on with his time. It was all about him. Every single day of the 10 months we had him on healthcare, it was all about him. You know, he got a bit of centre of attention. He's done me out a couple of times with me. I had a couple of proper ding-dongs with him. And then, you know, he might not talk for a couple of 3 days. But, yeah, I got no time for him. I won't miss him at all. So, for me, capital punishment for people like that. Get them off the planet, away, gone, and forget about them. He will bang to rights him. So that's my view on capital punishment. Dale Cregan the same, you know, he banged to rights. He murdered 4 people. Get gone.
I talked about a man last week who actually benefited from capital punishment being outlawed, Brendan Behan. And there's one quote he had, which I didn't say last week, which I don't think you will take overly kindly to, but I'll just I'll say it anyway. Did you hear about the screw who married a prostitute?
Go on.
he dragged her down to his level?
Well, you know, I've met some bad people in that job. Some bad people. It's a well-known fact. You put good people in a dark place and they become bad. That's not an excuse or whatever. You are what you are. But I've no doubt these people that went into that job, who were bullies before they went into the job. But never ever forget, you know, I worked with some amazing people. If you saw them, you wouldn't think they were prison officers. No physicality, no size. Some of the lasses I worked with, all different sizes. So I always bring it back to that. I work with some lovely people who you probably would not recognize as prison officers, but I've never made no excuses or denied the fact that some people are bad. And you know, you're not above that. These people, not a lot, but there's people I work with who did far worse than any prisoners ever did. Not that any prisoners, but they did things they should have been locked up for, definitely. So I see where he's going with that.
One of the fascinating adventures you would have had as during your time as a prison officer was when you had to escort prisoners to funerals.
Yeah.
And there was one particular one in Manchester for David Kaplan that was pretty stressful for you.
I think that's pretty much an understatement. What you have to understand, any funeral escort, I went on for, that is not a brag. If I could have been anywhere else on them 4 days, I definitely would have. It's not, you know, most of us, when you get to a certain age, have buried loved ones or whatever. They're not the best days. They're not the best days building up to it. Yeah, we usually end up with a drink and the odd joke, but the days aren't pleasant. But attending somebody else's, you know, it's a very personal thing. It's got to be mum, dad, brother, sister, close, immediate family. So, you know, it's a very personal thing. It's a tragic time, heartbreaking for lots of people, and you're right in there. You're with them. You're handcuffed to them. You're in their personal space. They're in yours, but you're also in other people's. Yeah, it's not a good place to be. And the one you're on about, which was, I don't actually know the cemetery in Salford. I'm not, you know, I'm a Sheffield lad, so if you asked me to take you there now, I wouldn't have a clue where it was. I would recognise it again. It was just horrendous. The lad's dad had died in tragic circumstances. He was well known in Manchester. There was an element of criminality there. The day could have ended a lot worse as well. There was a point when we were by the graveside when I thought, at the very least, because there was two lads there, there was him and his brother. His brother was from Strangeways. He was from Forest Bank. When we're actually at the graveside, with a coffin and everything, at the very least, I thought they were both getting off. Bear in mind, we're handcuffed to them, so at some point, the handcuffs have got to be removed. And we're not talking about a key. And obviously, they would have to do something with us in order for them to get off, whatever that might have been, whether they'd have got a good beating or whatever. But it was, looking back now, that is probably the most scared I've ever been. However, the lad who was from Strangeways, who was handcuffed to his brother, that was my strength, because that lad just, you know, he did look beyond terrified. So yeah, not the best place to be, as you can imagine. And there's nothing about it that is is pleasant at all. It's just something that should never happen, really.
And you're a figure of hostility as well. You know what I mean? As in, you're a figure that encourages hostility because you're seen as the bad guy. You're there that's preventing
Well, yeah.
him from mixing them, like, you know. And
It's like police, isn't it? You know, everyone hates police. At the end of the day, you know, we need a police force. They do a good job. I'm not saying everyone who's in the job's good. Same with prison officers. You are, you know, it's not a job that people look at. They obviously think of all the bad things. So yeah, you're not a pillar of the community. And in that sort of environment where there's a criminal element, you are definitely the bad guy. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a no-win. There's nothing coming out of that. There's nothing pleasant. It's not a safe environment. Very, very dangerous. You know, there's a big risk. So
another funeral that you're going to met with hostility was at a Muslim funeral.
Yep. Okay, so we attended this Muslim funeral. It was in Salford. We didn't go to a cemetery. We were going to a house. The lad we were taking it is his dad who had died. And he was actually in the house in an open casket. I'd no idea what we were going to at all. When we got there, there was no women. It was just men that were there. I only realized this recently when I was talking to somebody who's Muslim. No women attending. It was all men. It was very, very hostile. When we arrived, the hostility was it was just incredible. There was 3 staff. My thoughts were just to get back on our transport, our van, and go back home or go back to the prison. After a very short time, a young lad appeared who I now know was the cousin of the lad we'd taken to see his dad. He calmed things down, a very young head on his shoulders, and we actually went into the house. This is a big Victorian house in Salford, classic semi-detached house. Like I said, there was a sea of men. They were all dressed in their, you know, prayer gowns or whatever. No women. Before we entered the house, I was told that I would have to remove my footwear, which I refused. I said, "You're that's part of my uniform or whatever. We bought this lad. I won't be taking my boots off." That was not met well. Again, the young lad calmed everything down. And when we actually went in, we went into the front room. Like I say, the lad who we'd taken, his dad was laid in an open casket, which I was not expecting. Very, very uncomfortable again. You know, totally out of my comfort zone. It was me and another lad who was cuffed to him. It was hostile. Started praying. The whole room, standing room only. Honestly, it was, you know, there was people in your personal space. The lad we'd taken started praying. My mate who was cuffed to him had no choice but to go down on his knees whilst he was praying. The moment I remember the most from that incident, it doesn't matter how long I described it for to you, your viewers or whatever, without being there, you'd never understand the hostility. It was, most people were not speaking in English. There was, I would say, a lot of hate directed at us. If it hadn't been for the young lad, you know, I'm not quite sure what had happened. But the outstanding thing was getting back on the van, setting off, getting away from, you know, the house, the crowd and everything else, and the young lad we'd taken to the funeral thanking us. At that point, I could put that incident to bed, but it was again, like the other funeral, equally just something. It's the stuff of nightmares. Honestly, it is not a scenario that anyone can manage, or sorry, anyone can imagine. Terrifying.
You mentioned Salford there. I suppose just kind of a fun fact about Salford, because I know you can live there for a while as well. In Blackleach, was it?
Oh,
Salford.
yeah.
Not your happiest times of your living situation, but
They used to, the police. I don't know whether they've done it in your country. In our country, you could click on a postcode, and little black dots would register. I mean, red dots would register a crime. So where I live now, West Yorkshire, you could click on a postcode, and there might be a couple of dots in an area where there'd been a couple of burglaries or something. When I lived in Blackleach, it was just red. There was no dots. It was just a crime area. The sad thing about Blackleach was that half the people lived there were decent people. The other half were like animals. I lived there for 6 months. It was quite a new housing estate. Some houses were privately owned. It was just crime after crime, fights, people breaking in houses at night, damaging your cars, drunkenness, fighting, fires, robbing. It was a nightmare, mate. Honest, that again is something now. It's when I first brought our lass over to Manchester, that's where we first landed. We can laugh about that now, but that 6 months, it's the worst place I've ever lived in my life, ever. And I've lived in some rough places. But like I say, you've got to remember that some of the people were lovely, and they were sort of trapped in that environment.
So I just want to make a strange connection here for you, but I'm a huge fan of the Pogues.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Did they live on Blackleach?
No, but I'll tell you a connection. So
Go on, then.
I've seen the Pogues play in Dublin, London, and Manchester the last time. One of their last gigs, and went to see. It was in Stockport Road. I think it was the O2. Is the O2 Academy?
Oh, yeah.
There's the Apollo. Apollo, is it? In Manchester.
Apollo, the Apollo's on the road into Manchester.
Yeah. And one of their songs is Dirty Old Town. And that song is based about Salford. It was written about Salford, Dirty Old Town.
Was it?
Yeah.
How come the Pogues were writing about Salford?
Well, this is the thing. Ewan MacColl wrote that song. Does the surname seem familiar, MacColl?
Kirsty MacColl.
Yeah. So she that was Kirsty's dad.
Oh, was it?
Ewan MacColl, and the Pogues and Kirsty MacColl recorded the hit Christmas song Fairy Tale of New York.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a connection there with Salford. But Ewan MacColl wrote that song about Salford, Dirty Old Town. So obviously that resonates. That resonates with you based on your experience of the place.
Well, to be honest, Salford is a city in its own right. If you live in Manchester, yeah, like me, when I first went, Manchester, but Salford, if you're from Salford, you say from Salford. If from Manchester, you say from Manchester. Two different things. Salford's got a cathedral, and it's actually Salford City. So there you go.
I lived for a summer in Great Stone Road in Stretford.
Oh, yeah.
It was a cousin of mine that was over there, and it was one of those houses where you paid rent by the week. It was an Irish landlord as well, actually. He lived next door, so it actually worked out fairly well. But I'll be honest, I didn't like the place, and I'm a Liverpool supporter, and it's fair enough, but I actually find Liverpool people a lot friendlier than Manchester folk, straight up. I don't know if you could agree with that or not. But
they're just very different people. They're different to Yorkshire folk. I suppose it's like your diversity, different cultures or whatever, different music. But certainly people from Salford, they won't call themselves Manx or anything like that. There is a bit of a divide or whatever, but Yeah, they are. They're different people. They're different people. But you know, you get that in Yorkshire. There's parts of Yorkshire where people are quite culturally quite different. But certainly Manx and Scousers are miles apart in cultures. Miles apart, I would say.
Yeah.
And obviously there's that hatred because of Man United and Liverpool.
Yeah. I lived quite near Old Trafford as well, the stadium, so it was a unique experience for the summer. But one of the things, I did a job briefly, door-to-door sales in Bradford. As we were walking around in the pissing rain, trying to sell insurance to people, and yeah, commission only as well. So if it didn't make any sales, you didn't get paid, you know. So
Yeah.
I don't have great memories of Bradford. What a grim place. I don't know if you know it well or not, but Jesus.
You get a good curry.
Yeah. I didn't hit many curry houses now in my days there, but yeah, I don't have fond memories of Bradford, to be honest. But one of the things that fascinated me in the book, Sam, as well, was the prisoners throwing out a line on the wing.
Oh yeah.
And it was struck by how ingenuous the whole thing was, and you maybe explain to our viewers what that meant.
Let me tell you. So the thing is, it is true what they say. It's very cliched, but prisoners have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get up to mischief. Throwing a line out. I didn't see it much on adult wings, but certainly with the young offenders. Cell doors aren't flush fitting. It's not like your front door in your house. You know, there's a small gap down the sides. They might have a bit of a gap at the top, but certainly at the bottom, you know, you might get up to an inch gap. They get a knife, they get some thread from a sheet. And what they would do, if you got a guy next door who got a Rizzler and you wanted a smoke, they would fire the knife out. So throw it under the door, yank it back, and it goes straight in next door. They were that skilled, yeah? The guy next door, tie a little bundle to it, Rizzler, throw it out, and you could pull it back in, make yourself a roll up. They'd do it outside. They would drop a line from one window down to 1, 2 below, might be 2 on as well. They were I can't even tell you the skill. On the young offenders wing, I once saw a lad, he threw a line from the 2's landing. So he's on the first floor, as it were, yeah? The ground floor, he threw the line out, so it went down to the ground floor and across the landing. Now, the skill, bear in mind, you're behind the door, you're crouched down, yeah? You imagine trying to do it. It's unbelievable. But they were at it all the time. There'd be lines coming out all night. Now, some staff would stamp on them or you know, write them up, put them on report. Me, it just used to fascinate me. There was one on B1 once. This lad threw a line out across the landing. Could hear him talking to the lad across the landing. I tied his line to the leg of the pool table. Yeah. So he starts pulling on it. He's saying to the other lad, have you got it? He says, no. He says it's snagged on something. And he started pulling it, trying to pull the pool table. But yeah, it's just a method they use of getting things, obviously after dark, when they're banged up. If a cell's got something and it can get it under the door, they do it, you know. You might want a pen to write a letter. Can I borrow your pen? Boom. Send a light across the landing, you know, 10 meters straight into another cell. They tie a pen to it, pull it back in. Very clever.
It's amazing what you can do when you have so much time to yourself, like, you know. You can
there you go.
develop this stuff. Racism in the prison service, you touched on that in one of your videos on the Real Porridge podcast. But you mentioned earlier on about someone who was being petty in the training class, and officers in general being a bit petty, but there's one in particular involving a birthday cake.
Oh God. Yep. That was on I-Wing. There was a lass. At the time, this lass, I knew her to speak to her. She was one of them friendly souls, so I didn't work with her. But when I saw her in the top jail where I worked, yeah, she worked up there in an office. So as you're going about your daily things, you would see people. She was one of those people, super friendly, really nice lass. You know, and go out your way to talk to you. So I went onto I-Wing one day to fetch a prisoner, and there's a piece of it was a piece of cake. Yeah, I didn't know it was birthday cake on the desk. So this lass is working on there. So I says, "How you doing?" She says, "It's my birthday." Wished her happy birthday. She says, "There's a piece of cake there if you'd like it." Now I didn't need asking twice. Yeah, I love my food. So I ate the cake, thought no more about it. Might have been a week, 2 weeks later, I sees her. I says, joking like, you know, "Have you got any more cake?" She says, "You got me in trouble." Before I tell you what she says, let me tell you, within the last 12 months, she's messaged me and we had a laugh about the incident. So it stuck with her quite, you know, it's all right to laugh about it, but at the time it affected her. So what happened was, there was a lad on the exercise yard, a prison officer who was black, his ethnicity, he was black. He came back onto the wing, yeah, saw the empty plate where all the cake had been, and that's where his cake was, his piece of cake. So she says that I'd come on the wing and I'd had it, which I did. Anyway, he reported her to the manager of the wing and said the reason that he'd had no birthday cake was that she was racist. Which, you know, what can you say about that at the end of the day? You know, there was no cake because I'd eaten it. She offered it me. I was there and I ate it. However, she was made to feel bad and she was made to apologize to that lad. So the manager got her and him in an office and she had to apologize for giving me a piece of cake because he felt hurt and that she was racist. And that's how the prison service operates. Me, if you'd have come to me, "What do you mean she's racist? Has she called you, use racist words or language or whatever?" "Well, there was a piece of cake and this other officer ate it." Get over it. Do you know what I mean? It's a piece of cake. On K-Wing, I've said this, you know, if somebody brought some food in on K-Wing, like cake or something like that, and put it on the desk, first come, first served, mate. Boom, you're in. Do you know what I mean? But she was made to feel bad about that, and it did upset her quite a lot. So there you go.
On the other side of the coin, you mentioned before you were concerned that a lot of people were being radicalized Muslims in prison, and that a lot of people have been influenced and maybe coerced into converting to Islam in the prison. Would that be fair to say?
What happens in dispersal? Strangeways is a local prison, as in Forest Bank, yeah. I came across people, the lad with the shampoo bottle, yeah.
Yeah.
He was, you know, how should we say, not the best educated, not the brightest. He converted to Islam and then started preaching at people to the point where he got threatened because he was annoying people. You know, not just a conversation. He would keep bringing it up. He got threatened, that lad. But certainly in long-term prisons, dispersal prisons or whatever, vast majority of prisoners are Muslim. And I came across lads from Salford who've been to dispersal prisons and became Muslims through fear, you know, of retribution or whatever. It's like, you know, join our gang or whatever. Our gang's the biggest. Yeah. So I did come across lads. One lad in particular, when he came back to Strangeways for accumulated visits, which is if you live a long way from home, you can save your visits up, get a move back to a jail near your family, maybe have a month of visits before going back to your long-term prison. He did that. I asked him about, I noticed on the serve rate, you know, after a few days, he's taking the halal choice. I asked him about it. He was down as a Muslim on the computer. He just said, I've got a long time to do. It's easier to go along with it than fight people. So I said to him, well, you're back at Strangeways now. He said, if somebody here knows somebody and they find out that I'm like eating normal food or whatever, or not going to Friday prayers, when I go back to my prison, I'll be in trouble. So I didn't really see it so much. But long-term prisons, it's well documented, it is problematic.
Was the guy who was eating the Quran a Muslim convert? Or was he Muslim?
No, he was mentally unwell, that lad. It was nothing to do with religion, that incident. He just come to a point, he had some brain damage. He was mentally unwell. You know, he was just, there was nothing religious about what he was doing. You know, it wasn't done. It wasn't done for any sort of demonstration or anything like that. He was just not in a good place, that lad.
So one incident that had a profound effect on you, Sam, and was probably responsible for you developing PTSD, was finding the corpse of Pavel Lipkon.
Yep.
Could you maybe summarize how that was for you?
I think what happens with prison officers, whilst you are working, and I'm talking about, you know, over a period of time now, and depending where you are working, you will come across incidents and deal with incidents that are quite disturbing. However, you know, you just turn up every day, carry on what you're doing, no support or whatever. So the lad you're talking about was a Polish lad. He was on a short, he weren't sentenced, he was on remand, he was due to get out. He took his own life. So the first thing is that, you know, finding someone who's killed herself is not the most pleasant. It is quite shocking. Maybe some of that shock doesn't come till later. You know, depending how you react, some people maybe call assistance, some people would maybe go in there and try and deal with the incident, you know, CPR and the like. And this was one of them instances. I was shocked to find him. He was on the healthcare, but no one was concerned about him. No one was concerned. He was a risk to himself, either self-harm or suicide. He was due in court within a week. He would have probably got out of court. However, you know, you don't necessarily know what's going through someone's mind. So he didn't hang himself, he clotheslined himself. He tied a piece of bedding between two bars and he was like lent on it, so it weren't around his neck. And maybe he was experimenting, I don't know. But at some point, I think it's called your vagal nerve in your neck. If he'd lent on this clothesline, as I described it, and hit that nerve, you know, and passed out, then it had led to him ultimately dying. For me, incidents like that, way worse than actually dealing with the incidents is maybe, no, not maybe, definitely how people react and treat other people. You know, it's a very macho culture in the prison service. You know, the terms man up and, you know, what's your problem? It's only a prisoner and things like that. Not good to hear. Some people deal with things like that better than others. There was a young officer there who was in deep shock. He wasn't actually involved in the incident, but he was clearly in shock. He was white. He was obviously quite distressed. A member of staff who were really good spoke to him, and he got sent home, that lad, and rightly so. But, you know, you got people hanging around while we're doing CPR on someone with some of the nursing staff, talking about football, laughing and joking, you know, stood outside a cell where staff are trying to save someone's life, which is just, it's beyond disrespectful. Mm-hmm. Some of the managers' comments, managers who come on, you know, they're not concerned about staff. They're not concerned about the prisoner or anything like that, you know, and it's off-cuff remarks. And again, it's all based around that macho culture. So an incident that is bad enough and shocking enough is made 10 times worse by how people react and treat other people that you work with.
So that was a big element of your disillusionment. It was like the straw that brought the camel's back for you, would you say?
No, it was a long way off, actually. It was just one of them things that you deal with. Like I say, you know, come back to work the next day, you crack on. The people I work with, you talk about it, they're your support. There was no interventions from the prison. You know, you're not offered any help or anything like that. It's just, you know, just get on with it, as it were. Some people I've worked with, you know, maybe involved with something like that, I'd be off work for a couple of weeks or whatever. It affects them that bad. No, I think in the prison service, for me, it's an accumulation of things. So at the time, like I say, I just turned up next day for my shift, and you just get on with it. It's just part of the job, as it were. So yeah.
But it accumulated.
Yeah, of course it does. It's looking back after, for me, like I say, what people would deem the most horrific or frightening incidents. It's how they were dealt with by managers and the like, and how people treated like myself and other staff. You know, it's just there's no duty of care. People don't care. A good manager, I've always said this in a prison service, every single incident, when a manager turns up, that incident has been dealt with by the staff. All they need to do is look out for the staff, make sure everyone's okay. There were some good managers who would turn up, you know, are you all right? Are you all right? Does that person need to go home? Others, it was just troublesome, you know, to have to be present in an incident like that. It was time out of their day. They ain't got enough time. They didn't want to be there. And that come across as well. So you imagine you're sat there, you just found someone who's taken their own life, and some manager, you know, very much off the cuff, you know, I need to be somewhere else. What's going on? That sort of thing. That's what makes it worse, or made it worse for me.
Towards the end of your time in Strangeways, things came to a head.
Yeah.
And you ended up snapping.
Yeah, definitely. My last 3 weeks, April 1st, or was it March 1st, 2015, the whole setup in Strangeways changed. They rotated a lot of staff. Yeah. So you imagine any job you've ever been in, that somebody comes along and in one day you move all the staff around. Imagine it in a supermarket. Simple scenario, yeah? So somebody works on clothing, you put them on the butchers. Somebody who works on the butchers, you put them on a till. Somebody who's doing pizza, you put them in the warehouse. It'd be chaos. But they did that at Strangeways. Not only did they do that, they moved the prison population. So they moved wings. Lots of prisoners moved. But also they brought in new ways of working. And it just went, there wasn't enough staff March the 1st to do the job, and it never got any better. My last 6 months, every single day, 20 and 30 staff short, which you can't operate. Again, you couldn't operate You couldn't operate a supermarket if half your staff didn't turn up, could you? It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
A lot of instances, a lot of aggression. The healthcare changed. We got new staff on the healthcare where I'd worked for 7 years. I couldn't get on with them staff. So I ended up moving to A Wing. I've been on A Wing 3 weeks. Incident every single day, sort of maybe a week and a half into that 3 weeks. I witnessed a prisoner assault 2 staff members. So at that point, I didn't realize, but at that point, you know, I was in a bad place. I was very aggressive, not sleeping, anxious. Like I said, I didn't know this at the time. You know, I wasn't enjoying the job. I wanted out of the job. But I didn't know that either. Anyway, I saw him assault 2 members of staff. I had one of them car crash moments. I ended up picking this lad up, carrying him across the landing, dumping him in a cell doorway, pinning him to the floor, and battering him. You know, I punched him 3, 4, 5 times in the face, pinned him to the deck. Auditory loss, couldn't hear anything. Can't remember going across the landing and restraining him. All I can remember is I got him in a cell doorway, punched him in the face, and then I remember all the staff sort of dragging me off him. I still can't remember, you know, maybe the 20 seconds leading up to that. But at that point, there's cameras on the landings. If I'd have been on camera doing what I was doing, at best, I'd have got sacked. At worst, I could have ended up in prison myself. But like I say, it wasn't a, you know, it wasn't something I thought about. I'd gone, completely gone. So, yeah, that weren't good. That was beginning of the end, as it were.
After a while, you decided to take some time out. I'd say it was a weight off your shoulder to just walk in the door and just say, I'm gone.
Well, it got injured. So this is in my last 3 weeks, that incident, yeah. It's probably a week later. I got injured. I hurt my shoulder badly. It was the day before my annual leave. I got 2 weeks holiday coming. I went home, bad shoulder. End of my 2 weeks off. The missus was like, you know, you need to go to the doctors. There were obviously something wrong with my shoulder. Went to the doctors, got a sick note, and that was me done then. I had 11 months on the sick, and then I got finished by the prison service.
Like, I think you mentioned before as well how the lack of empathy you got on the phone when you were asking about retirement or illness really affected you as well.
Of course it did. It was a consultant. A lot of people are not independent in the prison service. A lot of people who do a job for the prison service, occupational health and the like, it's, you know, if you go and see your doctor's independent. Your doctor will listen to you, whatever. Some of them people that I dealt with from the prison service, they were prison service staff. You know, you were on the sick. Their only concern was to get you back to work. That was their agenda almost. And it came across. It was very biased. I spoke to a consultant who, you know, he got no empathy understanding. He was telling me things. He didn't ask me where I was. He had no concern about me, no duty of care. Didn't want to know about my health. Didn't know about stress, how we were feeling, what I wanted. Nothing like that. And it just don't work. You know, if your GP were like that, just imagine your GP. You go and see your GP. I need antibiotics. Yeah, you can't have them. You know, that's coming out of my pocket, or that sort of attitude. It won't work, would it? And when you're in a bad place, you know, it just makes you worse. The thing is, I'd sort of gone flat out in the prison service, worked lots of hours. You get injured, you take a step back, and then it just, you know, the Pavel Nikpon, the death in custody, they just come back. But it's not just one incident, it's incident after incident after incident after incident. And a lot of people I know that's happened. You know, you're flat out. You imagine your car, you know, it's flat out. You've run it into the floor. Bam. It just stops running. It won't run again, and everything catches up with it. And it's just like that. Just hits you, and you can't control it. So
one thing I really admire, I suppose, about the book as well, Sam, is that you don't shy away from, I suppose, how it affected your home and family life in the job. Like you mentioned, that you probably weren't the easiest person to live with.
Yeah.
During this time, like there's extracts of your fiance Amy, her experiences, how it affected her from her own point of view.
Perspective, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, from that point of view, right, I went away when I was doing the book. For me, it's just about being honest, tell it how it is. I spoke quite recently, actually, about doing the book, working on the book was fine till the reality that it was going to be published and it was going to be out there so that anyone could read or criticize it. Because, you know, I laid myself open. When I read it, it was fine. But then when you realize other people are going to read that, you know, and you've laid yourself bare. But certainly the bit with Amy, I just asked her to write down a few notes about, you know, how she'd felt or whatever. And she did. There were 4 sides at A4. She talked about, you know, feeling alone, the long hours, you know, whether she didn't know whether our relationship had get through that. You know, it was quite, it made me cry. When I read it, it made me cry. I give it the writer, he just put it in the book. He didn't edit it. In her own words, 4 pages of A4, bam, straight in the book. So yeah, it is, you know, it is quite raw. I talk a lot about sort of the mental health thing, how I felt at the time and that. And looking back now, it's a relief that, you know, it's 5 years since I felt like that. It is a proper relief.
Yeah.
So, and particularly this last couple of months, I feel myself moving on now and able to leave it right. But it's taken 5 years. So, you know, that's quite a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's good for your relationship and your family life to be gone from the prison service.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So that's the thing. What's your plan for the future, Sam? What do you think? What would you like to do?
For me, I have nothing, you know, hard and fast or whatever. Obviously the podcast, criminal justice, mental health, but you know, I don't just want to. The mental health's massive. Everyone at some point suffers in their life. Got another book coming out, January or February 2022. And then at some point I would like to work with the writer and produce a book on mental health. So really carry on with the podcast, meeting people, and maybe start thinking about, you know, later in the year when the other book's done, you know, where I want to go with that. Because I would love to do a book on mental health for sort of the working man. Somebody can pick up, no big words, in plain English, well, Yorkshire, as plain as it gets, you know, that you can pick up. That's me. Yeah, I recognize that. Right. Medication, just in simple terms, you know. So not a medical reference or anything like that, but somebody who's unwell can read, and it'll help them understand maybe what's going on with them or their loved one or something like that. So
Brilliant. It sounds unreal and something I would definitely purchase as well, to be fair. Book number 2, what's that going to be based on?
People I've met. We're not sure what it's going to be called. Maybe Inside Strangeways, maybe Surviving Strangeways, something like that. There is a lot of overlap, characters in the first book where they are now, both prisoners and other staff. So there's a lot of links to the first book, but it is something new in itself, as it were. So yeah, can't give too much away anyway.
No matter. You can definitely come on here again and promote it when the time comes as well. Look forward to reading it.
Job's a good one.
I think you will be a very good consultant or an intermediary for the prison service. Potentially.
Somebody actually emailed me the other day a job advertisement with a private prison service wanting somebody in an advisory role. And I thanked him for the time, I thanked him for thinking for me. I think for me now, there's that many flaws in the prison system. There's that many things at fault. Nobody really seems interested in sort of solving anything at grassroots. All these groups, activists, reform people, the sort of things they're looking at, they're not, you've got to go to staffing levels, prisoner relationships, dynamic security, and start there. People aren't interested. There's no budget. Public sector prison, when I left, I was on 30 grand. They're now paying 22 grand. How many jobs in this day and age are going the wrong way with salary and that? So in answer to your question, I will keep putting it out there. I'll give people a voice, ex-staff, ex-prisoners, keep working on the mental health. And, just the prison service from now, I'll just put it to bed now. If somebody asked me, what my opinions on something or whatever, I'd be happy to give them. But yeah, I'm just going to let it slide into the water and float on off, as it were.
Yeah. Well, what you're doing is very good anyway. You are highlighting a lot of positive things and you're proactive in doing so, and people are comfortable telling you their story. And I really enjoy your own podcast. I listen to it religiously.
Very kind.
And I hope that other people watching this will also give it a go as well. And I'm going to put the link again for the podcast in the channel. And before we wrap up, anyone who's interested in becoming a prison officer, be it UK, Ireland, wherever, is there any pearls of wisdom you'd like to give them before they start?
Yeah, definitely. Incidentally, I get at least one message a day from people who've either watched the podcast, read the book, who are going into the job. So contrary to what people think, I've not said to anyone, don't do this. Lots of people do message me. Speak to a lot of people now who have actually, over the last 18 months, gone into the job. Me, number one, be yourself. Don't try and be someone you're not. Yeah. Like we've already said, people will suss you out. Just be yourself. Be a bit humble. That is a good quality. And also, the respect is earned. You can't do that with prison, I always took people at face value, yeah? So you give them a chance. If they cock that up, that's up to them, and then they have to redeem themselves. But you just have to take people as you find them. And it's that simple. There you go, my pearls of wisdom.
And for many more, please subscribe to Real Porridge Podcast. Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure. I could actually talk to you for the day You're so engaging to talk to. Your stories are brilliant. Your book is brilliant, and I suppose it's been great getting to know you as well over the last few weeks as well. And the offer of a place to stay in Cork is still very much open to there whenever you're coming over. So thanks, Bill, for joining us and for your time. You're very generous. As I said, I put the link for your channel in the video description.
Yep.
Give it a subscribe, guys. You won't be disappointed. As I said, I'm looking forward to having you back on again to promote your new book, which I'm intrigued by.
Yep.
Thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you next time on the Real Porridge Podcast. Good night. God bless.
You're very welcome. Cheers.